Hi everyone, and today we will be talking about personality typing and how it could be helpful in a professional setting. With me today I have Qise, who is a bit of an expert or knowledgeable, I would say.
Yeah, let's
when it comes to MBTI.
Yeah.
Okay, do you want to sort of get started and explain to everybody what personality typing is?
Specifically Myers-Briggs. So Myers-Briggs Type Indicator, MBTI, is a typing indicator that essentially buckets people into 16 different personalities. And the way it does that, I think most of you have taken it already. If you have taken it, yeah, you've definitely taken it. I've taken it. If you've taken this test, at the end of it, you get 4 letters. And those 4 letters essentially give you an overview of how you show up in the world. And so it might be like an INFJ or ESTP or something like that. Every one of those letters means something. And the more you know about what that means for you and for others, the more beneficial it could be. In this setting specifically, I guess we're talking about it in a professional way, right?
Yes. And it's such a broad sort of topic, and obviously we won't have enough time to go and through the sort of details,
all the different elements,
yeah. And so we're going to be focusing only on the last letter. I've taken the test and I'm an ESTJ, and you've also taken the test and you are,
and I identify as an ENTP.
Okay.
And ESTJ. So what does that mean? And as you mentioned, what are the last 2 letters and what's the significance of them? Not getting into what does it mean for as far as ESTJ or ENTP is concerned, but in essence, the last 2 letters are, I think, more significant for a professional setting because it teaches you about how you interact with tasks and deadlines, right? So if you're a person who, you're smiling because you know that the 2 are very different, right? So J's, what the letter stands for is judging, not to be confused with judgmental. Essentially, judging means that you're a person who likes order, structure, timelines, things to be
this is my space.
Systematic, right?
This is my space.
If you're a P, on the other hand, which is how I identify, you're a person who likes to keep the options open. You like to be open to data as it's coming in, as opposed to following predestined routes to get to a specific end goal or task.
Right. And so to help people understand, I'll give an example of what steps I would take if I'm given a task, whether it be at school or at work. So I get a task, say, from my manager at work, and the first thing I do is I write down the deadline, and then I make mini goals to achieve that bigger task that was given to me. I personally need that structure. I need a path that I can follow, so I set these little mini deadlines just to help me stay on track.
Right.
I don't understand anybody who doesn't function in this way. I cannot relate to you people.
And that's common, right? That's common for both sides.
I do things almost immediately. I do not wait until the last minute. Even at school, I would, when we get an assignment, I would have it done maybe a week or 2 weeks before and just cruise for the last week.
Exactly. It's almost like you speak different languages when you talk to people who aren't identifying as the way in which you identify, which is, for you judging me, P. And P, by the way, stands for perspectives, in essence, meaning, so similar to you, I'd like to give a little bit of an example. In college, I never really started a paper. And by the way, I was a poli-sci major, which means we wrote a lot of papers. I never started a paper until it was really close in a deadline. And I remember almost every single paper that I've ever written being done overnight. And it's not so much that I'm procrastinating. Of course, there's an element of that. But for folks who have the P letter in their stack, there needs to be a sufficient amount of pressure prior to focusing you on that deadline, and that turns out to be the deadline itself, right? So if it's looming, if it's nearby, you are going to be super focused, and God forgive whoever is going to get in front of you between you and that deadline, because you're going to want to get it done. So, because the reason why is you haven't done anything for a long time. And that probably me talking like that just
anxiety
break out in hives, right?
Yeah, it really does. Because I think for me, my brain is so organized and structured. If I know that there's sort of the deadline is looming, that structure goes out the window. I can't think, I can't function.
I don't have enough time. System does not.
I'm worried more about the time than I am about what's on my list. So, essentially, I end up coming at a standstill.
Right.
So there's obviously pros and cons.
Right.
to both
Absolutely.
letters.
Absolutely.
Do
Absolutely.
you want to say what your pros are?
Well, pros are that I think less P's are typically less stressed out than J's because things do change and deadlines are still there, sure, but don't always go according to plan.
Mm-hmm.
P's are very comfortable when things don't go to plan. In fact, they prefer it that way.
Right.
Whereas J's, I would much rather things go exactly as planned, and life just has different plans in that.
Yeah.
Usually, so that's a con on the J side and a pro on the P side.
Right.
Obviously, on the J side, you just get probably more things done in general
We do.
and on time, and people
Yes.
see you as a person who is accountable
Deliver.
and timely and get things done.
The only downside I would say to J, and it's the only one, is that because we set tasks and deadlines so early on, we almost have like this tunnel vision.
Yeah.
We're not open to new information. We're like, here's a task, this is where I am, I need to move towards this task. And we close ourselves off to receiving new information, which could be beneficial to the task at hand. But because we're so focused on the tasks and those mini steps, we just completely don't even see that. So I would say that's probably one of the negatives on the for the J's. But for the P's, what would you say?
A negative is?
Yeah.
Just folks thinking that you procrastinate.
Yeah.
Typically being seen as a person who's unaccountable, maybe even causing yourself stress down the line. Although for the same period of time, a J might be more stressed out in smaller increments. Maybe overall the stress amounts are the same because by the time you're close to the dead end, you're stress-free on your end.
Yeah.
Whereas the stress is just now starting and the all-nighters are just beginning for me. And so a lot of scrambling the jets to get things done at the end. And sometimes not being able to get things done because of, just like you said, being open to so many different things coming your way and keeping your options open. Causing you problems. And this is actually important in the professional work setting because if you know that about yourself, right? If you know that, hey, you can just say procrastinator. Well, everybody can be a procrastinator. Well, hey, this is actually a way in which I'm wired mentally. Then you take the precautions necessary to work in the world that you live in, because the world that we live in is one that favors J's, right? It was probably created by J's for the most part, because it's a systematic, orderly world. You've got to know what your manager's style is. That also, right? And your coworkers.
And your coworkers, because they're going to look at you, and if they see you, if they only care about results, then it doesn't matter if you're a J and a P. Right. If they don't care about how you get there, it's not an issue. But if they are very about processes and procedures, they want to see you follow certain steps. And for a P, that's going to be extremely hard. Right. And you may end up putting yourself sort of in jeopardy at your job or whatever it is that you end up doing.
Exactly. You might come across as flaky or unreliable.
And also, it just reminded me, I had a situation at work where I had my to-do list for the day, and then my manager comes in and says, forget your to-do list, we need all of this done. I got so flustered, and I was just like, for a good half an hour, I was trying to figure out
what am I going to do for the rest of the day?
I think I was more stuck on the stuff that I put aside than the new list. I'm not flexible enough to think on the spot, which is something I acknowledge and I need to
it's not even so much that it's the flexibility, it's much more that you're just not comfortable in that space. And like you said, in the back of your mind, you're just like, but I need to check off that list, but I didn't do those things because it's still lingering. Whereas with me, I'm like, thank God that list is out of the way. Okay, now what are we doing? What's the exciting thing? What's so new? Let's go. Let's get that done. Well,
I'm excited, obviously, to sit down with you and have this conversation. We want to hear from you. Have you taken the personality test? If so, what are your letters? Share with us. Comment on this video. We look forward to hearing from you.
All right. Bye.
Thank you.
You're welcome.